And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Oceanborn, we have the Blue Protoss player. Blue Protoss, the Canadian Protoss representing Team Basilisk. It is Trigger. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the Italian Zerg player, the Red Zerg representing Team Basilisk as well. It is a team kill. It is Reynor. If he plays against Cyril, why not against Scarlet? True, true. Against his better judgment, he may play Protoss against Scarlet. I mean, again, he didn't look very convincing against Mixu, is why I'm concerned. Like, there was definitely moments where Mixu was outperforming Reynor, so I'm not too sure how wise it would be for Reynor to play Protoss against Scarlet. At the same time, Scarlet is very much so vocal about her disdain for the ZvP matchup, and it is something that she doesn't enjoy, so it may be worth it anyway. It may be worth it for Reynor. We'll get there. We'll get there. We will get there. For now, it is going to be a hatch gas pool, standard opener out of Reynor, force take the unnatural natural, and we can sink our teeth into some Trigger action. Again, Trigger, we mentioned before, he is an up-and-comer in the North American region, has done so well for himself. He debuted back in 2020. Sorry, I think it was 2021. 2021 era of StarCraft was when Trigger first hit the field, hit GM. He was, of course, good friends with Nina, good friends with Starduck back in the day, mainly playing arcade games, and then eventually dabbled in 1v1 and was able to break into GM relatively quickly. It's really cool to see the rise of Trigger. He's been improving a lot. He's on a premier team. He's on Team Basilisk, and he's getting a lot of support. But it does feel like Trigger, he has really popped off in certain matchups. Trigger has amazing PvT. Like, we've seen Trigger beat Byun, we've seen him beat Gumiho, we've seen him go toe-to-toe with Maru, we've seen him go toe-to-toe with Clem. Like, I do think that Trigger's best matchup is Protoss versus Terran. But, and alongside that, his PvP isn't too shabby. We've seen Trigger even defeat Estrella. Estrella kind of being like his nemesis in the Americas region. And he has brought Estrella down in PvP as well. PvZ, though, this is the matchup that Trigger struggles in the most. And to be fair, like, everyone has a worse matchup, right? Like, Clem's worst matchup is TVT, Cyril's is ZvZ, Trigger's BVZ. It's the matchup that he still is working on, still is a little bit lacking in some respects. But I do hope that, again, it's something that he's working on, something improving on, and something that will actually be showcased here, and potentially could even bring it to, or make a series out of this. I would hope so. I would hope so. Trigger is very active in the online tournaments, very active in the online scene. I'm sure that this is a matchup that he is focusing on. More so than the others, I would hope. As we have a Ling slipping into the main base, getting quite a bit of damage done. No kills, but forcing some lost mining time. Ling is going to be dealt with, but we get a free scout of the main base. Reynor, he is aware of the Stargate, he is aware of the Oracle, he's aware of the opener of Trigger. He's aware of the opener. So from here, Reynor, he's aware he has to just drone, make sure that his queens are in position to deal with the eventual Oracle. Again, a standard opener here from Trigger should be triple Oracle into a third base. When it comes to Trigger's PvZ specifically, I know I've been speaking a little bit in generalities, as to his Protoss versus Zerg, but he does play pretty standard. Trigger doesn't deviate too much. He's not really one to embrace more chaotic styles. He's not like Estrella. Like, specifically, I know they're both from the same region, but Estrella is more chaotic, he is more wild, and Trigger a lot less so. Trigger is more standard. He's the yin to the yang of Estrella in a big way. Meanwhile, one Adept does get surrounded. Adept goes down, the other is close to falling as well. Good control here out of Reynor, and he does pick up the final Adept. Nice control. Did lose a lot of Lings, but again, was a worthwhile trade. Does take control of the third base at the same time. Oracle across the map did not get in. Did take quite a bit of shield damage. 2 Adepts for 8 Lings. A pretty worthwhile trade here for Reynor. Behind this, yep, Twilight Council and Forge. It's kind of what we expect here. It is going to be +1 and I imagine Blink. Now, Trigger can, of course, make use of Charge. He is one to deviate in that direction, but both of those are pretty standard. Pretty standard overall. I remember back in the day, years ago, because we watched his debut. Fun fact, Trigger, he debuted in like the online Battle of the Americas back in the day. That was an online tournament that we would host on a weekly basis. And he used to be a lot more aggressive. Like, I remember him, like, cannon rushing and cheesing and proxying. Like, that's how he started. But, again, has kind of left that side of him behind. Has grown as a player, which is probably a good thing. Probably is a good thing. As Oracles, they threaten the main base, but they are being forced back. Again, the Queens are very much so in position. And behind this Reynor, he's been able to drone up quite nicely. Like, he hasn't really sustained much damage whatsoever. And because of his Lings, Adepts haven't had the opportunity to harass either. Again, 0 drones have gone down so far. Behind this, it is going to be Blinken +1. We have a Templar Archives on the way, so we're going to be reinforcing this with Archons. I imagine with Charge Lot as well. Oracles are still dipping in between the bases. They get eyes on the Natural, on the Saturation, on the Baneling Nest. Reynor, speaking of our Zerg player here, has not thrown down a Roach Warren. It's just going to be pure Lingbane for the time being. Now, this could be a sign when the lair finishes. This could just be Lingbane into Hydra. That is very much so a viable composition. Or Reynor could throw down a late Roach Warren and just go Lingbane Roach Ravager. We'll see what direction he does take us in and where we do send it. A Lingbane Ultra is also an option to go into Fast Hive, but that is typically done on larger maps as we do catch the army force a recall. Clutch recall at a trigger, doesn't lose anything, but was caught out nonetheless. And I was talking about Lingbane into Hydra. It is not. It is Lingbane into Muta. Okay, we have a Spire in production. We have a safety Roach Warren as well, thankfully. Roach Warren is also thrown down. Meanwhile, Lings, they go for a massive surround here, and we're looking for a cancel. Up, and we're going to get it. We are going to get the cancel here on the 4th base. Big pickoff here from Reynor. Very nicely done. But again, the Roach Warren is just to make sure that if Trigger does push out, if there wasn't a Roach Warren, then Reynor would just die. So he will have access to reactive Roaches. For the most part, the Spire, though, is unscouted, and he wants to preserve his gas for Mutas. Mutas are a great way to deal economic damage, to put the Protoss player on the back foot, and to get a lot of breathing room. Meanwhile, Storm is done, a Blink about to finish. Pretty interesting composition here from Trigger's other wall. The Zealot was not on hold position, and it gets dragged out of the wall. Probes are going to be going down. We get into the mineral line in the Natural, in the main base as well. 5 workers fall. Even if it's only 5 probes, this is already worth it here for Reynor. Gonna get a High Templar. Up. High Templar to survive. Army is dragged out of position. Now we can get on top of the 4th base again. There is a cannon, there are oracles. We will hold on to the 4th. This time it will not be cancelled. But remember, we're just keeping the attention of Trigger back at home. And this means that, as Lings get even more probes in the main, this means that we don't scout. This means that Trigger is in the dark as to what comes next. He doesn't know that they're in Mutas. He has seen pure Lingbane, and again, in his mind, it could still be Lingbane into Hydra. It could still be Hydra, it could still be Lingbane into Ultra as well. He has no confirmation. He doesn't know. The flock of Mutas is getting ready to go for a big counterattack. We see Trigger rotating around towards the right-hand side. We'll get on top of some of these queens. Likewise, Lingbane is amassing. Big storms here on the Lingbane, by the way. Good trade overall, but we do get on top of the Archon. We get on top of the High Templar as well. There's just too much Roach Ravager here. We're breaking through. At the same time, the Mutas that go straight for that Natural base. We have Stalkers in position, but no cannon or shield battery in the mineral line. Ay, we were not ready for this. 8 probes go down. In the main base, we have nothing either. Again, Trigger just not expecting these Mutas, and we're just getting out of control. 13 probes go down, and the main army gets completely deflected. We clean up all the High Templar, all the Archons. We get 14 probes, and now we get into the 3rd base, into the 4th. And we're not done. Nowhere close. There's still a massive flock of Mutas. And behind this, we're done with Mutas. We're reinforcing with Lingbane, Roach Ravager. Infestation Mid is on the way for Hive Tech, eventually. These Mutas have already paid for themselves, and they're going to get even more value. They get even more probes. Not like this. 4 more workers going to be going down. And again, we're just amassing a death ball of an army here on the right-hand side. There's a handful of gateways left to defend, but remember, Trigger, he lost all of his High Templar and Archons. When it comes to this army composition from Trigger, it has to build up over time. Like Archons and High Templar, they gain value over time. You want to hold on to them. They're so expensive. And we've lost so much. We've lost too much at this point. No storms available. The Banelings just roll on in, roll past the army. Get big connections here on the Stalkers. The Queens are waddling in as well. We don't even need the Queens, but they're going to help nonetheless. And we will break the 4th base. GG gets called. Reynor will take game number 1. GG. GG, well played. Ooh. Yeah, a solid game there out of Reynor. Again, because of how aggressive, because of how in Trigger's face he was, Trigger never really got the opportunity to scout. Or, I should say, just never had the breathing room to scout. Or even the foresight to. And unfortunately, as a result, he was in the dark, he didn't know what was coming next, and he was woefully underprepared for those mutas. Again, no site defense in either one of the bases, no Phoenix production either, despite having the Stargate. He was just caught with his pants down, and the mutas got out of control. Not just that, but even without the mutas, remember, at the same time, Reynor had also won a fight on the right-hand side. He killed, what was it, 6 High Templar? They tried to morph into Archons, but he cleaned that army up as well. So, Reynor, he won on both fronts, both in the main fight and in the harass as well. And yeah, with that, Reynor just snowballed out of control. Took game number 1, but now we're getting into game number 2. Let's go. Let us go. The team killing. Oh, Smooch. Feels bad, man. Feels bad. Not like this. And spawning in the bottom right hand corner of Site Delta, we have the Canadian Protoss player, the blue Protoss representing Team Basilisk. Looking to fight back, looking to force that ace match. It is Trigger. And spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the red Zerg player representing Team Basilisk. It is Reynor. Here we go. The team kill does continue. Catching up with the chat. You think parting will return to high-level competition? Initially, I would have said no. We saw parting. We saw his return to tournament play. It was 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago, and he played in KSL, and he got knocked out in the first round by Coffee. So after seeing that, I was like he's still building himself up. He's still working on it. It still looked like parting had a lot to really grow and a lot to really get back into. But it was this week. So that was 2 weeks ago. This week, parting played in ESL Open Cup. I think it was ESL Open Cup Americas, if I'm not mistaken. It was one of the ESL Open Cups this week. And he played against Bjorn. And he beat Bjorn. And remember, it was only like a week difference between his series against Coffee and his series against Bjorn. Both PVT, of course. And parting beat Bjorn. And that is a very impressive result. That is something that I was not expecting, especially after seeing him lose to Coffee. So, yeah, I was very surprised to see parting take Bjorn down. Now, obviously, it was one series, and I would still favor Bjorn over parting overall. If they played again, I would still favor Bjorn. But for parting to beat Bjorn does show us that he has potential. Does show us that like he has it in him to like kind of go toe to toe with some of the best out there. So it's a good sign, is what I will say in the end. If you're a fan of parting, if you enjoy parting, it is a good sign that he was able to beat Bjorn, and I would hope that he stays motivated, and parting, he may come back to competitive play as a result. It's possible. It's possible. Is possible. Now, what I will say, though, is that both of what I just mentioned is the PvT matchup. I haven't seen parting against Zerg or against Protoss, so you know, different matchups require different skill sets at times. That's why some players have really good, like, certain matchups and really bad others. So we'll see. We'll see how parting does perform in some of those, against some of those other players, against Zerg and against Protoss. So we'll see. We shall see. But definitely exciting, you know, if you're a fan of parting. Regardless, behind this, we're getting into our game so far, standard openers, nothing too crazy. It was a hatch gas pull out of Reynor, forced to take the unnatural natural. Likewise, we have Trigger going for a Stargate opener. For a Stargate opener here should be Oracles, and we should be getting into a third base. There it is. Oracle is in production. Third base is soon to be on the way. So standard play here from Trigger. Is sending his probe. There we go. I was like, where are we going? A bit of a miss rally here. I was getting a little bit scared for a moment, but everything's as it should be. As that's a shade into that third base. They're going to be able to get one worker. Not a bad pickoff, but the Lings are able to keep up. Link speed is done. We shut down one of the Adepts. Good control there out of Reynor. He locks down the second Adept, and he will bring it down as well. Very big pickoffs here from Reynor. With the death of those Adepts, that means that the third base is going to be that much more exposed for Trigger. Oracle is moving out, and the Lings are going for their own counterattack. Just a scout. There's only 2 Lings. Not much left over. Ooh, as the Oracle does get into main base, Reynor being a little bit greedy here. No Spore in position. We'll be losing one worker. We'll be losing a lot of mining time as well. Reynor, is that a laser? Is that you? Reynor, you're cutting quite a bit of corners here. Does get a Spore at that third base. At the same time, Lings did confirm the third base of Trigger, but aren't able to do much about it. Trigger, safe and sound here on a 3-base economy. And again, he did quite a bit of damage across the map already. No major worker kills, but lost mining time, and that does add up. Speaking of, ooh, a bit of an overextension out of Trigger, does rally into the main base. Oracle comes in from behind. Oh, takes a lot of hull damage though. Have to be very careful with these Oracles. Behind this, we have a hidden Roach Warren in between the bases. Now, this was around a 4-minute 30-ish Roach Warren. This is early. This is an early Roach Warren. You do not get a Roach Warren this early on, especially against a Stargate opener. There's no reason. It gets scouted. It does get scouted by the Oracle. Again, very suspect here. We'll see if Reynor does make use of it. As yeah, we even throw down the revelation. We just so everyone knows that we scattered it. You know, I know, Trigger knows, Reynor knows, and Reynor is still committed. He's making 7 roaches. Lings are on the way. He doesn't care that Trigger knows what's coming. He's going for it anyway. So we'll see what Reynor can get done. Again, quite a hefty amount of roaches, and I mean, Trigger has a lot of time to respond. We've got a warp into Stalkers. We have Shield Battery on the way. Oh, we're going all in with Queens. That is going to be Overlord speed. So it's going to be all or nothing for Reynor. He's focusing on his crease threat across the map. He's knocking down these rocks. He is all in. Now Trigger, as we mentioned, because he saw the early Roach Warren, he should know what's coming. He should be getting ready back at home. We have a secondary pylon on the way. We have +1 Blink in production as well. Additional gateways finishing up. Where's the side defense? We need more side defense here to defend, as we are sending everything across the map. It's possible that Trigger hasn't pieced this together yet. There's barely any saturation here at the natural or in the third base. He's killing workers, which is nice, but again, workers that don't matter because we're just sending it. We're sending everything across the map. Drones are not a priority, not anymore. We have a second shield battery. That's okay. We need more, Papi. There's no shield battery here at the natural either. This means that Reynor, if he sees, he can ignore the third and he can go straight for the natural instead. And there we go. He goes for the surround and collapses some of these Stalkers. Blink is not done. 2, 3 Stalkers go down. Big bars here. Shield battery is not going to finish. We have an overcharge, but only a single shield battery. And all we need is a couple of vials in the shield battery. It's going to go down. Trigger, he did not take this seriously enough. He saw it coming ahead of time. He had the signs of the all-in, but he did not respect it. And Trigger, his third base is broken. Every single worker goes down. The Stalkers get caught out as well. And Reynor, he's broken this base. Not just that, he can keep pushing. Again, only 1 shield battery here at the natural. Barely an army. Reynor, he can just keep on going from here. It's going to be a kill on the Nexus. The Stalker's doing whatever they can. Blink is now done for the Protoss. Blink is done, so we can try to trade as best we can. But at this point, Reynor, yeah, he can just focus on the natural. He doesn't have to turn around. He can keep going. He can keep pushing. We get a surround. 3 Stalkers get picked off. Vials are going to be connecting here. It's going to be on Artosis pylon. Everything gets depowered. A big blow to the production. Meanwhile, the I was going to say the Stalkers. The Queens, they drop into the main. They can transfuse. They take control of the main base of the mineral line. Cybercore goes down. No more Stalkers. GG gets called, and Reynor will take the series 2-0. GG. GG, well played. Reynor does take it 2-0. And Trigger, I assume that he thought after he saw the... Okay, so he saw the Roach Warren, right? Again, it was a 4-minute 30 Roach Warren. Very early, especially against the Stargate opener. That was a massive tell already. And Trigger saw it. He even threw down the Revelation on it. And I imagine that he assumed because he saw it, because Reynor knows that he saw it, that Reynor would back off. I'm pretty sure he assumed that Reynor would drone from there and he wouldn't commit. So Trigger was taking a bit of a chance. He was taking a bit of a risk, gambling, assuming that Reynor would kind of deviate away from the original plan and macro instead. But it's Reynor. Like, he doesn't care. You know, he's not really the most cautious of players. You know, you can scout his all in. He's going to go for it anyway. Like, even if you scout it ahead of time. So he committed, and Trigger, it did look like he didn't realize that his opponent had committed to the all in. He was constantly checking the mineral lines. He was checking and even dealing economic damage across the map, which also tells us that, I mean, this is energy that could have been used in stasis traps, right? Or even the Oracles themselves could do a lot of DPS to Lings. Like, Oracles are pretty valuable defensively against these kind of all-ins. Like, Oracles against Lings, they clean them up, and then you have the Stalkers for everything else. But that's my interpretation as to what just happened there, is that Trigger assumed that Reynor would back off just because he got scattered. And Reynor, he committed anyway. GG, well played. Reynor will take the series 2-0 and will maintain his lead in this group. GG. And with that, we will be looking for our next series. Again, so far we're nearing that halfway mark in Group D, or in today's broadcast. A lot of matches still to come, a lot to look forward to.